Have you ever felt it? That strange, crawling suspicion that the world you walk through is not quite real, that the glow from the screen is shaping your thoughts more than you care to admit. Look closely at this scene. A giant, grinning beast shines a television light from its backside. A line of broken people, heads replaced with toilets, shuffle forward, surrendering their minds to a flood of waste. This is not satire. This is not a joke. This is a warning. We live in a world where reality itself has been replaced by simulation. A world where screens don't just entertain, they capture, they seduce, distort, and consume. What you call news is a spectacle. What you call entertainment is a trap. What you call truth is a reflection of a reflection, looping endlessly until reality disappears. This is the hyperreality. Jean Baudrillard tried to warn us. He said we would come to prefer the copy to the original, the image to the thing itself. The question is no longer, what is true? It is, are you brave enough to escape? The toilet of the mind is filling. Will you break free or drown? What if the greatest trick ever pulled wasn't a lie, but an image so captivating, so seamless, that it didn't just distort reality, it replaced it. This is the world Jean Baudrillard warned us about, a world where screens no longer reflect reality, but define it. We watch, we scroll, we consume, and somewhere along the way we forget to ask, is this real? Or am I living inside a copy? The television, the phone, the endless feed. They don't just show the world, they become the world. The map has replaced the territory. The image has replaced the thing itself. It's why a politician can win not by telling the truth, but by mastering the right aesthetic. It's why a tragedy can feel like entertainment if it's packaged correctly. It's why millions can walk through life as passive spectators, mistaking a simulation for experience, mistaking a filter for reality. This is hyperreality, a place where the symbol kills the substance, where the spectacle devours the truth. In this realm, it doesn't matter if what we see is authentic or artificial. What matters is its power to capture, to dominate, to reshape how we think and feel. Baudrillard called this the end of the real, a death we didn't notice because it came wrapped in color, sound, and light. The image has conquered reality, and unless we recognize it, we will live and die inside its spell. Jean Baudrillard gave a name to the world we now inhabit, hyperreality, a realm where the copy no longer points to an original because the original itself has been lost. In hyperreality, images don't just represent reality, they become it. The symbol replaces the thing it signifies, the surface swallows the depth, the map precedes the territory. Imagine a world where a news broadcast doesn't tell you about an event, but creates the event in your mind. Where a photo on social media doesn't capture a moment, it defines the moment itself. In this realm, the boundary between fact and fiction disappears, and we accept the simulation as more captivating, more authoritative than reality itself. Baudrillard called this shift the precession of simulacra, a process by which signs evolve from faithful reflections of reality to distortions, to masks concealing the truth, and finally to pure simulacra, signs with no relation to any reality at all. In this final state, reality becomes irrelevant. What matters is how convincingly the image operates within its own self-contained system. We see it everywhere, a crisis manufactured for clicks, an influencer's persona embraced as genuine character, a politician molded by focus groups until the person disappears and only the image remains. The lines blur until we can no longer tell where reality ends and simulation begins. Baudrillard's warning is a grim one. When images dominate, when spectacle replaces substance, we don't just lose access to truth, we lose the ability to recognize its absence. We become inhabitants of a world where signs multiply endlessly, referring only to other signs until nothing is solid anymore. That is hyperreality. not a distortion of the real, but its eradication. And unless we recognize its grip, we remain its captives. Behind every screen lies a machine, a sprawling, invisible mechanism designed to shape, filter, and distort the world we perceive. This is not a neutral device. It is a factory of illusions, a machinery built to capture attention, manipulate emotion, and redefine reality until we no longer recognize its boundaries. Modern media doesn't just deliver information, it produces it. The camera doesn't record events, it creates them. Headlines are crafted to trigger fear, outrage, or desire. Images are edited to erase context and deepen spectacle. Algorithms work in silence, rewarding the loudest, the shallowest, the most polarizing voices. The goal is no longer understanding or reflection. The goal is engagement, to hold us longer, to draw out clicks, to monetize every glance and thought. In this machinery, reality becomes raw material. Tragedies are reshaped into entertainment. Political debates collapse into slogans and sound bites. Culture itself is reduced to a loop of distractions designed to satisfy the addictive appetite for more. The media doesn't ask for obedience. It doesn't have to. It operates by reshaping desire, making obedience feel like a choice, making distortion feel like truth. Baudrillard called it the era of the simulacrum, where the screen doesn't mirror reality but replaces it. We no longer watch events as outsiders. We inhabit the image, living within its rules, accepting its language, internalizing its commands. The line between observer and participant vanishes. We become the machinery itself. The tragedy is that we forget we ever had a choice. We forget that reality existed before the screen defined it. And as this machinery spins, as the images multiply, it reshapes the very structure of thought, making resistance harder, making skepticism rare. This is the engine of hyperreality, a force that doesn't just consume attention, it consumes the soul. The question is, will we continue to feed it? Why do we accept this? Why do we surrender to a world that reshapes itself in the image of a screen? The answer is as old as the human psyche itself. We crave belonging, we fear isolation, and we long for a sense of understanding, even if that understanding is an illusion. The machinery of media doesn't just overwhelm us, it seduces us. It taps into our deepest anxieties and promises belonging, validation, and clarity. It tells us who to fear, who to admire, what to desire. We don't have to think because it has already thought for us. We don't have to doubt because it has already offered an answer. In a world where information arrives faster than we can process it, surrender feels like relief. This is why the toilet of the mind becomes so effective. It operates by exploiting the tension between uncertainty and meaning. The media gives shape to a world too overwhelming to comprehend, and we accept its version of reality because it feels safer than grappling with the unknown. Baudrillard warned that this is how we internalize power, by accepting it as part of ourselves. The screen doesn't just dominate from the outside, it rewires us from within. It transforms desire, reshapes belief, and makes itself indispensable. We don't merely consume media, we become it. And in doing so, we lose ourselves, not with a scream, not with resistance, but with a nod, a swipe, a quiet surrender. This is the tragedy of hyperreality. It doesn't kill us with force, it kills us with comfort. We accept it because it promises to fill the void within, even as it deepens it, making the void the only thing left. The question is no longer why we accept this. The question is, when will we wake up and walk away? What is the price of accepting a world built on illusion? It is the slow erosion of ourselves. In hyperreality, we lose the ability to discern where the image ends and where we begin. We forget that life can be felt beyond screens, shaped by moments that aren't filtered, edited, or packaged for applause. The cost is numbness, a quiet disconnection from the raw textures of reality. We drift from one feed to the next, searching for a spark that never arrives, filling ourselves with noise until silence itself becomes terrifying. The cost is a life measured not in moments lived, but in moments consumed. Not in relationships felt, but in likes tallied and shares counted. The cost is the death of depth. We forget how to be alone with ourselves. We forget how to sit with doubt, with questions that have no quick answer. We forget how to witness the world with fresh eyes and settle for the version broadcast to us. In hyperreality, it is easier to accept distortion than to struggle for clarity. It is easier to surrender thought than to risk the sting of truth. This is how we lose ourselves piece by piece until the person we present to the world bears little resemblance to the person within. The cost is not a loud, fiery collapse, but a slow, quiet decay. An existence lived at the surface, too distracted to wonder, too drained to resist. And yet, buried deep within this decay, the ember of truth still burns. The cost of hyperreality is high, but it is not irreversible. To acknowledge this cost is to recognize the first crack in the illusion, the first breath of air from a world that can still be real. If hyperreality is the disease, then awareness is the first antidote. To escape the simulation, we must first recognize its grip, acknowledge the ways it reshapes our thoughts, our fears, and our perceptions. This is not a call to reject technology or abandon screens. It is a call to wake up, to reclaim the sovereignty of our own minds. Baudrillard's warning was never about despair. It was about choice. We can continue to drift from one manufactured image to the next, accepting a reality that numbs and confines us. Or we can step back, create silence, and listen for a voice that is truly ours. The path out of hyperreality begins with questioning. What am I consuming? Who benefits from my attention? What truths have I forgotten because an image replaced them? We must create spaces where the noise of the screen cannot penetrate, spaces where thoughts can arise unfiltered, where feelings can surface uncurated, where conversations can occur without an audience. We must remember how to dwell, to stand in the stillness long enough to witness reality in its raw, unedited form. This is how we break the spell, not with aggression, not with denial, but with attention. By noticing where the distortion occurs and choosing to walk a different path. By cultivating skepticism and accepting that uncertainty can be a teacher, not an enemy. The media will continue to manufacture its illusions. The screens will continue to hum with noise, but we have a choice. We can remain passive consumers, or we can become active witnesses, aware, vigilant, and present. To escape the hyperreality is not to abandon the world, but to return to it, to reclaim ourselves from the machinery that would have us forget. The door is always there. The key is in noticing the bars. The question is, will we open it? Will we walk out? Will we remember what it means to be truly awake? The choice, always, is ours. We stand at a crossroads. One path leads deeper into the spectacle, a world where every thought, every desire, every moment is molded by a screen. The other path leads out of the noise, into silence where reality still breathes and the self can rise from its slumber. Baudrillard tried to warn us, hyperreality doesn't kill with force, it kills with comfort. It kills by making itself indispensable, by making obedience feel like belonging. But the door out is still open. The key is still within our hands. To escape is to remember that reality is not a feed, a headline, or an image. It is a conversation between your senses and the world itself. Will you reclaim it? Will you step away from the screen long enough to rediscover the sound of your own thoughts? The choice is yours. The moment is now. Will you walk out or sink deeper into the toilet of the mind?